welcome Horus to this little interview with the visionary Rose Ground that's coming up soon. Thanks for taking time today to answer a few questions and talk about your practice as well.
Of course, I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
So maybe to begin, if you want to start just describing to the audience, what you're about, what you're doing in your life right now, what's the mission on your heart, and just give an overview of you.
Hi everyone, my name is Horus. I have been on this path for a very long time. I guess I'll start at the beginning of a really important part of my life was when we all got hit with the pandemic. We all experienced things very differently during that time. For me, I was laid off, so I had a lot of free time and I was able to do a lot of the things that I wish I could do while I was working a 9 to 5, meditating, breath work, just taking care of myself. And from there, I started to hear a voice that was telling me that maybe I needed to leave the East Coast, at least for a little bit, to learn what it means to live off the land and what it means to kind of deepen in my own spiritual path and spiritual journey. From there, I did a lot of very kind of out there things to kind of follow the voice of spirit, meaning I took all of my stuff in New Jersey, I put it in storage. I didn't really know why or what the path was going to look like. I found a farm that me, my partner, and our dog ended up living at for 4 months. So we packed up as much stuff as we can fit in our Jeep Wrangler and drove cross country for about 2 weeks. Very new experience. Everyone thought we were kind of crazy and they were like, why are you doing this? They didn't really understand. But I think people maybe still don't understand, and that's okay because it's our path and we know what light we're following. Once we got to California, we lived on that farm for about 4 months and lived with the land, with 150 animals on 220 acres of land, with like an 80-year-old Chinese woman that was like 4'5", pretty short but super strong. And I learned so much through that experience, a lot around the root chakra and survival, and also the higher chakras as well, really learning how to listen to the land and the spirits of the land and understanding. I think the biggest thing that the land taught me is the land doesn't want to evolve until we know its history, we know its past. So it started to bring me to the stories of the indigenous people of that land, the Yosemite people and their stories before I evolved the land, meaning took care of the land, composted, planted things, and really regenerated it in a sense. And even on the land, it's so interesting. You can walk around and you can see all these different species of plants in certain places, and then you can start to think about what are the qualities of those plants. Mugwort, very protective plant, was all around the pond, and it made me think about the history of that pond because it was man-made. So it's kind of like the land is also trying to show you something, and there was a fire in another part of the land that happened a really long time ago before the owner lived there, and someone ended up dying there. And where they died, there was a big field of St. John's wort, very uplifting, very solar, very, tries to help people with depression and just bringing more light and solar energy into people's lives. So that was really beautiful, because the beginning of my journey was all around extraterrestrials and having experiences that were very mystical and out there and seeing things. And I think a lot of us, when we first start our spiritual awakening, maybe we have those experiences, everything comes online and we're like, oh my gosh, what's happening? So I'm glad that where spirit brought me was to really deepen into my root and the earthly part of who I am. From there, that initiation brought me to San Diego, where I joined my first mystery school, learning a bunch of different modalities. From there, I ended up opening a small studio with some people that I was in that mystery school with called the Switch House. For a few months, we were teaching various classes, workshops, initiating people, being initiated ourselves. And it was really awesome to be able to offer that to the community. But also, this was my first time doing deep one-on-one mentorship work with people. People that were just walking by our studio, people that knew us. And it was very, very interesting the way that spirit teaches us in that way, and how it's a collaborative experience, even different things that I didn't really know that well. For example, there was somebody that came in and they were like, hey, I want to learn about sound healing, but I want to learn about it through my own tradition. And I was like, okay, I don't really know what that means, because I am not, Eastern Asian descent or anything like that. I don't really know too much about those practices. But what was interesting was that one of my teachers and he ended up having a sound healing workshop that same week. And even a past client, she came up to me and she was like, yeah, like, I'm hearing about soul retrieval. Do you know what that is? That same teacher the same week was like, hey guys, I'm teaching people about soul retrieval. Who wants to do it? So understanding that when you open the door to the unknown and you're like, I don't really know how I'm going to support this person, but clearly there's some type of karmic thing happening here, or some type of opportunity here for the person to learn from me and then and me also learn from them. There's a beautiful process that kind of unfolds through just kind of being connected to the cosmos and your guides and having them walk with you as well. So I think this is really important to put here to kind of show people who I am, and I think also my values as well, in terms of like not commodifying spiritual lineage or spiritual modalities in a sense, and kind of allowing them to come to us, allowing that lineage to invite us into its egregore or its container, because we can like kind of bust through the door and be like, okay, I'm gonna learn this, I'm gonna learn qigong, I'm gonna learn yoga, I'm gonna learn all these different things from all these lineages that aren't my own. And that's totally okay. I'm not saying that it's not okay, but I think sometimes being invited into it, there's something really beautiful that sometimes happens through that, through those ancestors, through those energies kind of saying, hey, it's okay to learn this, and it's also okay to share this. Because something my teacher always told me is always share your personal practice. Don't share just something that you learned online. Share something that you do every day, something that comes from your heart and you've ran through your body, your energetic system a few times before you actually share it. So that's a little bit of where I have been right now. I am on the path of deepening my understanding of Kabbalah, ceremonial magic, and also metaphysical fitness in a way, as someone who is a Pilates instructor, but also somebody who is a spiritual teacher, and blending both of those together, whether it's just at the end of my class, during the cool down, or things that I say throughout the class, or how I teach, how I curate the experience, and knowing that, we're always kind of part of the experience in a way. Like, we can be in these 3D worlds in a 9 to 5 or whatever it may be, but we're still going to be ourselves if we're, quote unquote, spiritual teachers, or just have had a spiritual awakening. All parts of ourselves will always be in the room, no matter where we are.
And you also teach Kundalini, am I right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's why I was excited to have you on board this jury, because we have the other juries. They all have a very niche specialty in the art world, in the performance art, visual arts. But this grant is 50% of it is, yes, the art form or what your enterprise is, but 50% is also the spiritual practice and the depth of your inspiration. And I think from your experience, you also, I think you're a musician, you had mentioned, so you have that world and you have that eye for, visual arts, performance arts, but you also have the depths of understanding from a mystical point of view, which I think is a very valuable to have you on board. So to balance those polarities, the materiality of artistic endeavors and the depth of a spiritual insight. Mentioning that also brings me to like the grant itself is, of course, I'm an artist, so a lot of my background and the kind of wave that I'm putting forward with this grant is linked with arts. But I encourage also like entrepreneurs that are doing something meaningful with their energy to apply. Like you can share like images of what you're working on, and this open call is for creators in general. It's not just for visual artists. So I want people to feel free to apply, and we will judge you. The criterias of judgment for the evaluations of the applications are made so that we're not just evaluating like the visual, but also the thoroughness of the process that you're applying with. So I think that's good to mention. So maybe we can start with the first question that I'm asking all of the jury. How do you personally define visionary art or a visionary in general?
I love that question so much. That's something that has been really loud this year, actually, that word visionary. For me, I feel like a visionary is someone that kind of embodies the idea of Mercury. So if you look at the symbol of Mercury, inside that symbol is the symbol of Venus, the symbol of the sun, the symbol of the four elements, and the symbol of the moon. And when we talk about Mercury, it's related to the mind, how we communicate, the more mental realm. But within that symbol, you can see there's many different planes, there's many different aspects to that symbol. So I feel like a visionary is someone that is able to traverse those various realms and deliver that information here. So maybe you need to go to, the sun, quote unquote, the spiritual sun, whatever that means to you. There's so many symbols related to the sun and life and Christ consciousness and all of these different things. Or you come to the earth, the cross at the bottom, the four elements. Or you go to Venus, or you go to the moon or the cosmos, being able to go from the first floor to the second floor and then come back and bring that information back to the first floor, I feel like is super, super important, because as an artist, you're connecting, your more sacral chakra, which is related to creativity, but more related to the physical aspect of creativity is the way that I interpret it, with the throat center, which is more of the cosmic way that we create. So within the throat and the sacral, there is this connection there of the cosmic artist, and the physical artist may be the one that does things with their hands. So I feel like being a visionary is being able to bridge all of those different understandings of like, maybe I'm making a painting here in the physical, but I'm imbuing it with different sigils, or I'm praying over it, or maybe I am allowing it to be some type of portal to a realm or an intention or a guide or something. So I feel like that is one part around visionary work that I think is important. I think another part that's important to mention is the aspect that's related to the collective. Are you creating something for yourself, or are you creating something for the collective? And I think when we are able to create something for the collective that is also perhaps evergreen, that kind of is able to last the tales of time, I think that is able to kind of like, if we imagine like a plant, the plant's able to live for many eons. If people are able to come to the plant, interact with it, the plant is strong enough to take on and be around other people's energies. I feel like it's important to just really be able to have something that is kind of long lasting, that connects to the kind of visions that are on the planet as well now too. Does this really benefit what is happening in the world, in your community, in your own self? I think to kind of make that answer a little bit more simplified is like making sure that you're creating with intention and for a reason and for, yeah, some type of vision.
Yeah, beautiful. A few things came up when you were saying that. It's funny how on the 7th of July, a few days ago, Uranus went into Gemini, which is ruled by Mercury. And I've had myself lots of mystical experiences linked to this, which is the mercurial energy of, like you say, going in other realms and bringing the knowledge back or the insights back. And the other thing that it reminded me is what you were mentioning, basically, in other words, is like, are you creating from your soul, your solar self, or are you creating from your personality, your ego self? So are you doing what you're doing to gain status, gain money, notoriety? Are you doing this because you acknowledge that your soul is connected to the collective? And by doing what you're doing, you're actually embellishing and changing the codes for the better for the collective as well. So these two things came up as you were talking.
Yeah, and even when we think about like certain myths that are within history, different Greek myths, Egyptian myths, creation myths, those different stories are not just myths. They're principles of creation. They're how creation likes to come into this physical realm and teach us something and show us something, show us a theme. But the beautiful thing about myth is that when it comes to this current time and it flows through us as we are all embodying some type of archetype always, maybe one time we're embodying the archetype of Venus, of Aphrodite, of Hathor, of Hathor. Another time we're embodying something else, depending on what kind of beings we're working with or just where we are in our spiritual journey. I feel like the reason that those myths kind of come in through us and want to be shared and then translated into some type of visionary art piece or experience is because those myths want to also be upgraded as well. So I think also being a visionary is being able to bridge the ancient and the future and also the present as well, and be able to see your creation from a multidimensional lens, from a lens that's outside of time. If I create this thing 2,000 years in the future, would someone still benefit from this thing, and why?
Yeah, that's interesting that, what you're saying is a part of the ethos of Roze Umbra. Like, it's on the website, like, that Roze Umbra is about kind of encouraging and putting artists and visionaries forward that are creating the myth of the future, basically, like recreating the myth, taking these archetypes and through their art, through their creative energy, or changing those myths, adapting them with the new ideals of the times. So I think that's relevant, and it brings me back to like the reason how we came to meet each other. Also feels like a synchronistic. Like hearing you say those things feels like it makes more sense. These synchronicities of how we met and how like both our minds are connected in that visionary aspect. Like we have a similar idea of progress and where humanity needs to be going in a general way. So maybe I like we actually it's through my podcast season 2 you met someone you were looking at someone that was, I think Ken, that's also on the jury, that was part of the season, and you were looking up his work, and you saw that he was on a podcast, which linked to Roze Umbra, which linked to my art somehow, and my vlogs, and then you found out that there was a connection with my art, specifically a painting that was connected with Hathor, and ended up buying a print from me that I brought to you in New York, and then we kind of, it went full circle, and now also this conversation brings even more synchronicities forth, but like the mystical aspect of Egypt kind of is behind the scenes of both our minds and is uniting our consciousness somehow together. By the way, this is on the right here. Oh, maybe you don't see it in the camera, but that's a new piece that I'm doing, which is the
Nice.
archetype of the masculine warrior. But to be a real warrior, you have to have, your coat must be made of stars, the stars of Nut. So you must be like able to close your eyes and blindly kind of receive the input of the divine feminine and act to protect the divine feminine. And that's why the masculine energy is so valuable, is to protect the feminine, protect earth, protect the feminine energies. And it reminds me of this thing I also read lately, which was about how some ancient civilizations were made. Because I was reading about the sacred geometry of the number 7, because we were at the 7-7 portal a few days ago. The 7 is the one that it's connected with Venus, but with also the feminine, mysteries. And the 12 is the masculine, masculine mysteries. And so I was studying how they both interlock to each other, and it brought me to how the ancients governed civilization with having a council of 7 women and 12 men. So the 12 men would be the ones that would group together to bring forward the new ideas, and then the feminine would be the 7 feminine women would be the ones would be like no or yes, like they were the one to choose if it would go forth or no. So it was kind of understanding the different polarities. I thought that was interesting and linked with this sculpture that came through me a few months ago.
I love that so much. That's something that I actually spoke to one of my teachers about recently. Because, as you get into ceremonial magic and different things, you see like this symbol around like becoming the body of stars, or, seeing the stars, or, what do stars mean? And then, I'm gonna go on like a tangent on stars and the feminine, but all of this to say is like I see you, and I agree.
Yeah, and I think this. I'm sure you'll be on the podcast in one of the seasons, and we can go more in depth in these things. For now, I would like to know in your own, because you said you're a musician and you do other artistic things. What is your own artistic journey and creative process?
Well, when I was 5, I actually started to learn violin. I played violin for probably like 10 years. I didn't really like it, but it brought me into deeply understanding and appreciating music. From there, I was in a band and then got into music production. And I was making beats. I have an EP on Spotify. I still make music. I'm learning how to DJ. I think this month I have my first DJ gig, which is really exciting and a little scary. But for me, a lot of my process, a lot of my practice is related to music, sound, and frequency. I would say I'm also a sound healer. At the end of pretty much almost all of my classes, I do some type of sound frequency like journey, or just like cool down, or something. I think that's really important, as for me, sound really helps us sometimes like brush off the first layer of our aura, you know, when we're kind of like healing, or we have these kind of like astral or like mental thought forms, or you know, subconscious patterning, or just like gunk in our field. Sometimes just playing sound out loud and allowing that sound to hit our body and our auric field, it kind of I imagine like a broom just like brushing the first layer of our aura out. So it doesn't always do such deep regenerative like DNA restructuring work, at least on a shorter period of time. Usually the way that I work with sound is just kind of like really brushing the field and really kind of clearing the field as well, clearing a space. So from there, I'll probably go into communicating with some type of being or consciousness, or something. That's kind of like the layers, is what I'm saying, is like grounding, sound, you know, calling in whatever I'm calling in, doing some type of ceremony or type of offering, and then kind of going into my own specific practice. A lot for me comes through silence and just sitting and allowing the mind to just be loose and express itself, because a lot of times the best ideas, you know, always come through like the subconscious. So it's like, how can I wake up the subconscious, open up the subconscious, go into the subconscious, and just be open in that void space to receive what's meant to come through. And writing it down, and then maybe waiting a few days, looking at it again. You know, was that my ego? Was that actually an idea that I really want to pursue? Is that my work also to do? You know, because sometimes we get these ideas, maybe for the next iPhone, but I don't know anything about phones, you know, but maybe I can pass that on to someone else or post about it, and someone will be able to take that and reformat it and make it their own. So also understanding that and being okay with that too, and allowing the ego, you know, to sit in the passenger seat and not the driver's seat, and just be like, okay, this was a great idea, but maybe it's not mine. Even though it'll make a lot of money and I'll be famous or whatever it may be, it's like sometimes that's not the reason, or the full understanding of why that idea came to you. So also allowing these things that come to us to be mystical, and not having too much expectation on them.
Yeah, I think that's important in the creative process. For me, it was kind of forced onto me, like in the sense, like you saw maybe my vlogs where my paintbrush caught fire right before I'm starting to paint, because I was too rigid in my approach and I didn't allow things to flow, and I had ambition, but personal ambition instead of solar ambition. So it's important to, like you say, be aware of the behind the scenes of your mind, like why do you want what you want, and following the creative process in a way that's airy and kind of loose. That spirit can also have a word to say, and not just your worldly ambitions. The next question I want to ask you is, what is the most profound impact that you think visionary art can have on society and on individuals?
Interesting. I think what came to me immediately is, I think there is a need right now to be able to translate what we're doing, whether in a very specific medium like painting, or something that is more contained, and seeing how we can like open the gate to allow it to also live in the real world and across realms as well. Um, and I think that's been really apparent and in the forefront in my process, because recently I took a virtual theater class. So it's like you can create some type of art, you can create some type of theatrical piece, but how does it also impact and live in the world as well? And then we come into the beautiful modality of performance art, and being in an audience and doing some type of ritual, some type of ceremony, or just some type of experience that helps people awaken to something, that helps them see things differently. You know, there was one that I went to recently in the town over to me, and it was a whole entire play, whole type of ritual theater piece all around the stories of the community. And just kind of what I was sharing before, like the land doesn't want to evolve until we know its past. So it was kind of a beautiful experience to be able to talk about the past of, you know, this town called Hoboken, and talk about, you know, its community members and the stories and the different things that are happening on a local government level, and, you know, maybe big events that happen, like really big fires that really like altered the fabric of the community. And we bring that all in, the history of the land across time and space, in a ritual theater setting for other people in the community to also be able to interact and learn from that, so that they can then have the okay to evolve their own little plot of land in Hoboken, whatever that means for them. So I think it's all around like working and collaborating with our physical reality and being able to see that feedback system. I think a lot of us who maybe aren't on the spiritual path, we might hear the saying of your thoughts affect your reality, or you can do anything, you know, you just have to like put your mind to it and everything's going to change, everything's going to shift. But I think people that haven't seen that or don't know about manifestation in the way that it truly is, not in the kind of like new age buzzword, it's being able to see that feedback system and play tennis and volley with the universe and see, okay, I adjusted my idea or my frequency or a belief that I have around something, and now I'm seeing this weird synchronicity happen, this thing shift in my reality. So I think if we can figure out in our own way how to work with our visionary offerings in that way, and I think we already are when we put that kind of word visionary onto our pieces and the things that we're creating, that is what I feel like being part of that definition of visionary is for me as well. Being able to see that that feedback system of the internal self, the external self in the collective, the cosmos, maybe the ancestors, and, you know, all these different threads that we thread together in this kind of like web of life. So being able again to go back and forth within Mercury and bring things down and bring things in the reality, in the internal cosmic self, in the ego, and continue to have that conversation. So I think that's really important to put here.
Yeah, I agree. This is a thing I'm exploring too, like in my own art, is like how much, like I've noticed a few years ago, it must be at least 4 years ago, that every decision I take within my art, within my life, but like more specific in my art, just because it's like a condensed product, if I can say, is all unconscious patterns. And a lot of energies are working through us that we're not aware of. And so the more we learn about ourselves and we can disconnect from like just our conscious solar self and we can go in our lunar self, unconscious, the more we can understand the forces that are within us that are trying to get released through our art, through our decisions we take every day. So I do think like you're mentioning that the inner world is very important to understand, so you can understand the impact you're having and the impacting of your visions. Otherwise, I feel like there's a lot of artists and visionaries that are doing it unconsciously. So they're being used to create stuff. And that's part of like also the mission of Roze Umbra, is to help them understand the depth of what they're doing and not just a superficial first layer or sometimes second degree way, but to go like to the source of it. And for that, I think it's important also to see the bigger picture of where the collective is heading, where humanity is heading, so that you can, you know, place this individual vision inside the bigger movements of the tides of consciousness. So yeah, I think that's you explained it in a very beautiful way. My next question what is the biggest challenge or exciting evolutions you see happening in the contemporary art world, but particularly in the visionary space?
I think what comes to mind is like immediately one of my teachers. Her name is Hamza Lefay, and she is doing a lot of beautiful work in the performance art space that's related to transness, that's related to her own Vietnamese lineage. And I think there's also like a small thread there of spirituality as well. I think that's really exciting. I think psychic poetry also is very exciting to me as well right now, in the way that we put words together and the way that we look at language. Learning a little bit around Hebrew right now. And it's really interesting to see in Hebrew there is a term called gematria, and every Hebrew symbol has a certain numerical value, and those numerical values can mean something. So we relate that sometimes to like a haiku and syllables, and how each line has a certain like numerology of symbols for that poem. But in terms of psychic poetry, I tried something recently where I pulled a card and I wrote a poem about that message that was coming through, and being able to collaborate with spirit in that way, in a more oracular way, to create some type of poetic transmission, I felt like was something that was really beautiful and exciting to.
Maybe you want to expand on that answer. If you have an answer, maybe you have never thought about that, but like if there is a kind of a something in the collective that you feel like vision, like art, in the art movements, something that is evolving towards more visionary art, or
It's hard because I see both spectrums, where I see part of the art world that's making a lot of things that are very visual and beautiful, but it's just like, someone just spilling their subconscious into a piece of paper, and it's just like visually beautiful, but there's not a real purpose other than it being visually stimulating. And we can see social media in that way too. It's like pretty people making social media content, but there's not a lot of substance there. No shade, guys, but it's true. And then we see the other side of the spectrum of people who are making really important work, but maybe they still don't even understand how important their work is, because maybe they're still very small scale, and they're not seeing that them creating this art is maybe not impacting the collective in the way that they would like. Maybe it's not going viral, but maybe it's really impacting your ancestral line, or your small community, or your friends, by them being able to see like, oh, here's this person that's really putting themselves out there. And just by doing that, you're able to lead by example and show other people that like, oh wow, I think I can be weird too. I think I could try something new as well, and just like let my freak flag fly, and allow my subconscious to also spill all over the page, or whatever I'm creating, whatever offering it is, and allowing that to happen, but with intention. Yeah.
yeah, that's true. I've been learning that too, about my expectations of going viral, and then what my spirit is actually wanting. My spirit really wants my art to be resonant, and then I'm learning how to make resonant art, is that your mind, body, and soul must be fully aligned in a way that like what your person emits must be as strong as what your art emits, as strong as what your mind emits, in a way. Like, so, and when these three are triangulating, it creates an egregore, and this egregore will have impacts on people's minds, even though they're not conscious of it, because then the egregore has a power of its own. You're kind of creating, the triangle is like the yoni as well. It's the portal of creation. So once this is there, you've created something that has its own life, and that will influence whatever it has to influence without needing social media numbers to prove it. It will have an impact a lot more profound than just looking at your feed and seeing you have 100 new likes on your post. That's what I'm learning. So I'm happy you brought this up. Next question that I'm asking all the jury members: if you could mention like 5 artists, visionary, or people that inspire you, maybe they're not aware that they're visionaries, maybe they are, but if you have 5 people that inspire you today.
Yeah, I think you're definitely one of them. So
Oh, thank you.
take up one of those spots. I would say my partner as well. He is a ceremonial hand poke artist that combines ceremonial magic, the elements, working with sound, shamanic wisdom, with tattooing an amulet onto your body, your skin. My teacher that I mentioned earlier, Hamsa Lefay, performance artist. I would say my cousin, who is a painter, her name is Jasmine Jane, and my other cousin, who is a poet, the first person of color poet laureate of Portsmouth, New Hampshire. And lastly, like my sister is also a painter, so lots of artists in my family. Yeah, I'm very much inspired by them and their work. I think their work definitely is spotlighted by me because I see them, work so hard and share things.
The second part of this kind of short interview is just more about the grant applications themselves on a more technical level. So yeah, we can run through these questions a bit quicker. The first one is basically the Roze grant aims to support art that resonates beyond surface aesthetics. And what does this mean for you when you're going to be evaluating applications?
Yeah, I think what I'm probably looking at most is like what is a person's vision and purpose, and also how that interweaves with their own personal experiences and visions for the future.
What are the key elements and qualities that what you just said would represent? Like what in more words or description? Like what captures your attention and makes you think this is a strong application?
Yeah, I think I'm at least me. I'm not 100% looking for like activism in the way of like, yeah, this person needs to like protest and like take on all the problems of the world. I think I am looking at someone that is taking their little corner of where they are and seeing that as important, being like, okay, I'm here for a reason, and how do I pour my magic, wisdom, art offering into benefiting the land that I'm on, the surrounding community, and even the indigenous people that came before you, whose land that we are occupying as well.
And in this same vein, like, is there any common pitfalls you think applicants often miss that you would advise them to pay closer attention to in their submissions?
I think sometimes applicants might, I think we kind of mentioned this a little bit earlier, but like overly identify with like maybe the visual aspect or even the accolades that they received, and maybe even stripping that away of looking at your art from a deeper DNA sense versus, maybe in the more, technical coding word, the front end of a website, like the way that it looks. Like, I think what I'm most impressed and looking forward to is the back end. How is the website coded? How did it come together? What are the servers you're using? And all of that.
Yeah. And what do you hope to see the recipients of this grant achieve with this support? What kind of impact do you envision the project that they propose have?
I mean, the possibilities are endless, I think if I were to receive this grant, I would do something like for my community because I am a Leo rising. I like to talk, I like to be out in public. So also understanding like your own energetic self. Where do you shine? And maybe put that money towards where you shine, invest towards where you shine. If it's like, oh, there's a lot of noise in where I live, I would use this money to, go and do a residency somewhere, or, go camping somewhere and just get away from my reality. Maybe I live in the city. Really invest in some type of creative process, some type of creative project that you feel like is really important for you right now, for this current time. Right when you receive your prize money, all of the amazing things that we're providing through this grant, really sit with it and maybe meditate with it for a few days, giving gratitude for the space and these resources, but also who gets to benefit from these resources as well. Not just you, but those who get to interact with your offering or your piece.
And final question, is there a message you would like to share with artists considering applying for the visionary grant? Because maybe people will be seeing this still a bit hesitating. Do I fit in the visionary? A lot of people, not a lot of people I find identify with this label, if I may say. So perhaps it can be intimidating, but what would you have to say to these people that are hesitant?
I would say go for it. You never know. I was someone, for example, who went to a college. I didn't really like it. I tried to leave. And I was like, I'm going to try to live my dream. I'm going to apply to NYU. I, want to go to school for film. I'm going to do it. I don't have the grades for it. I did it and I got in. Did I go to NYU? No, because it's so expensive. But I always look back on that moment and I think if I didn't apply, I wouldn't have been able to see myself at the caliber of everybody who goes to NYU. I'm like, wow, like I'm at the caliber of people who graduate and they create like a HBO show. So because I got in and they saw something in me that they're seeing in other applicants. So knowing that whether you have the accolades, whether you just started, hobby painting or hobby whatever, your voice still matters. And whether you have, again, one follower, a million, whatever it may be, it's like we come to you for your stories, Clients come to you not because of your skills, but because the way that you translate your story, or even the way that you take their story and translate it through yourself. If you're some type of astrologer or oracle, or just someone that takes on the stories and myths of other people and upgrades it or runs it through their energy and creates some type of offering or some type of poetry for it. So we're all artists, we're all creatives, we're always creating something, we're always creating our reality. So I would say go for it and take the chance.
Yeah, and also like the what I've noticed with the applications, like the way that the questions are for people to apply to, they're designed also that even if you're not sure, answering these questions will give you a lot of answers to your own self because it'll force you to think of things that maybe you haven't thought about in your own practice. And perhaps it'll reveal something that is meaningful, that you are more of a visionary than you even think. So don't hesitate, go for it, apply it. It doesn't take, it'll take a certain moment just to think of the questions and apply, but it's not gonna take you like a few days. It'll take you maybe like a few hours to apply. So just do it. So maybe to end, do you want to have last, if you have any last words, or you want to leave people with how they can reach you, see what you do more in depth?
Yeah, my name is Horus. My website is houseofhorus.world. I am part of the world family, just like Alex Coma World. I thought that was funny when I saw your stuff. I'm like, yep, we're both world builders. And yeah, I think that's also really important to put here. Like, I think the future of social media, of creation, it's for the world builders. It's not for quote unquote, the content creators that want to, go viral, because, really the people that go viral, do we even remember them? Sometimes we remember the people that are creating worlds, they're creating rooms for people to go into and spend time in, and like really sit with the mysteries, or sit with the offering, or whatever it may be. I think there needs to be more world building. So I hope the people that are also applying, see this as an investment towards the world that you want to build, or yeah, the reality that you're trying to shape. Um, yeah, but I do one-on-one mentorship, Akashic Records readings. I do a lot of various different things. I teach Pilates classes and different workshops here in the New York City, New Jersey area. So yeah, there's always something to do with me, something to enter. Yeah.
Do you have a website with all your offerings?
hmm Yeah, my website is houseofhorus.world.
Okay, that is your handle and your website.
Yeah. Or my handle is house period of period.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much for taking time, and looking forward to having the applications. And we're gonna have discussions amongst the jury too, so it's gonna be, I think, a fun process for all of us.
I'm excited. Thanks, Alex.